Well, look, it's no secret that we're big fans of the NFL. We talk about it in
Yeah.
our spare time on this show, and it's no secret then to any of you who listen or watch on a consistent basis that the same applies for you. Well, now you have a chance to actually, make your mark on the NFL because there is a job opening, I hear, for a chain crew member in the NFL. So
I
anybody
don't
out
mean to
there
laugh.
who
That,
wants, I know, I actually almost felt bad opening the show with that because
that
it's really
dude's leg
brutal.
got so messed up.
Gosh,
It
the
was,
Lions Saints game, for those that didn't catch the news, a
oh
chain crew
man.
member. This is the danger of football. Look, I've covered games, in high school and the college level on the sidelines. You don't realize, even in high school, how quickly they can go from being
It's
just
nasty.
running out of bounds to being 10 yards out of bounds that quickly. But yeah, Alvin Kamara gets pushed out, rolls up on one of the chain crew members' legs, and
And
it was a
it
pretty
went
gruesome
like,
video.
you know what I mean? And the leg, like, is just hanging like this. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
watch on the YouTube
yeah.
where you just like, he's just like, and immediately grabbing for it in that, like, the video. And you're just like,
And it
oh
looked like he
my
was, like,
God. Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, there was no audio, but it looked like that
Oh,
must
yeah.
have
He
been
was in pain.
echoing for
Oh, yeah.
yards and yards. Um, but yeah, apparently it was a dislocated knee, so obviously that's super painful,
That's it?
but a little bit better. Yeah,
It
that's
was just
better
a
than what, because it,
dislocated knee?
yeah,
Oh, my God.
it looked like he snapped his leg in half,
I
didn't
thought it
it?
was
Like,
like tibia, fibia,
yeah, for sure.
Alex
No, so all
Smith.
the reports that I'm seeing are that he dislocated his knee.
Gee.
It might have been a pretty severe dislocation. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, either way,
It is one of
hopefully
those
a speedy
funny
recovery for that
reminders.
man.
Yeah, it was one of those funny reminders that you say too, like how quickly guys get out of bounds, but like how quickly you don't realize there are some of the best athletes on the world, like in the world,
Yes.
on those sidelines. And then the other like 70% of the people on those sidelines are like old people. Are like,
And that's
honestly,
true
like
though. Yeah. Yeah.
middle-aged doctors and middle-aged dudes who are like helping with the chain, and like they don't move quick at all. And if you're not 100%, it's like the foul ball game in baseball. If you're not 100% focused, you can take it. And even that guy, like, he's a chain gang. He's involved with the game, but it happened so quick. And yeah, he was in a lot of pain.
And unfortunately for him, he has to be close to the sideline, so
Yeah.
there's even less opportunity to get out of the way. But yeah,
You
you gotta
hope the team,
turn and
like,
run
they gotta,
almost.
the NFL, does the NFL employ all those guys, or did the teams employ those guys? Because that's one of those things where you're like, you'd imagine the NFL or the team or someone like
Pick up the
writes
tab.
for that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
they'd have to. I'd be
not
shocked
calling
if
his-
they didn't.
He's not calling his wife going like, honey, I don't have my card on me, the insurance card. Do you have them? Because I currently my leg got noodled by, a Saints player, whoever the heck it was. And it's like, now
Alvin Kamara. Yeah.
I'm sitting there. I'm sitting in the emergency room waiting. They dropped me off the NFL, and now I got to pay for like a $3,000, ride from the ambulance and everything. You'd hope they pick up the tab for all that.
It's just brutal. And, to put a button on that, or a bow on it, whatever the phrase is.
Put a bow. Yeah.
When, I've had like a couple close calls, never in a college game, surprisingly, but there was a time, I think it was 2 years ago, or actually it might've been 3, but I think it was 2 years ago, when I was on the sideline out here covering a game, filming it as I normally do. And a quarterback was running out of bounds. I was 10 yards in front of him, so I thought I was good, but a player came up from behind him and shoved him forward, and he came flying. It completely took me out. And so I have it on video. Maybe I'll share it on here one day. I don't think I have it.
We got to get the
readily
footage
available, but I'll try and grab that for next time, because it's pretty funny watching the camera just go from here to just straight down, and you see my legs just like flying out because I got completely taken out from underneath me. It was that was a good time. But yeah, you got to
thank God you're okay. And well, that's a good point too. Like, we're talking about the NFL covering that bill. Think about how many dudes get injured on the high school sidelines like every weekend, because of stuff like that.
Yeah, no. So there was this is just like an anecdote, but there was a guy I remember who was filming for like another TV station. I wasn't at the particular game, but it was very ill-advised and kind of stupid on his part, but he stood in front of the tunnel where they run out, and to get the shot, and they ran out and ended up fracturing his nose. He needed reconstructive surgery because he had the camera there.
Brutal.
Push the camera into his face. So yeah, be careful out there, folks.
Brutal.
But some other people that are obviously going to be needing to be tended to are the 49ers and Eagles players, because that was quite a physical matchup. And the Eagles absolutely got bodied in many different ways. So we're going to cover that and much more. Yeah, absolutely. From week 13 coming up ahead here on the Football Lounge. Or it's just not going to want to play the video. So then we could just not play that.
That's also
and we'll move forward. Yeah, so good stuff.
Our graphics got bodied out. Our graphics are in the ER right now.
You know, we're just getting owned in the trenches right now.
I was going to pull up some
lounge, and
I was going to pull up some stats to get ready, and I'm like, all right, I don't hear anything. Let's keep moving.
Oh wait, no, we got it. It's 5 seconds from being got. So you know what, Mark, go ahead and pull yourself some of those stats, and we'll get ready here on the other end of this intro for us on the Football Lounge as we get ready for week 13 and all of the action up ahead. All right, so week 13 brought us several key matchups, couple upsets here as well. Some, disappointing for some of us for particular reasons. Don't need to get into that, but some 2-win teams actually playing pretty well apparently this
feisty
week. We also had a Chargers Patriots game that didn't have a touchdown scored in it at all. And some over-unders that were a little bit shocking. So a lot to get to here this week. We already covered, of course, the Thursday night matchup between the Cowboys and Seahawks, where the Cowboys won 41-35. Go check out our Friday show on that one. We covered the whole thing extensively and discussed the state of the Cowboys. Of course, we have Monday Night Football coming up here tonight between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals as the Jags look to keep this train rolling. But Mark, we will start with the Colts at the Titans in the early window, and probably provided one of the more dramatic games of the Sunday slate, as the Colts win 31-28 in overtime. They get themselves, driving down, and Michael Pittman with the touchdown grab from Gardner Minshew to close this one out and get the victory for Indianapolis, who now pushes themselves into the wild card spot. So the question here, I guess I'll pose to you, Mark, as we cover this game. Are the Colts a legitimate team now that teams need to be worried about, with maybe just some of the Minshew mania, the Minshew magic, if you will, and just maybe how this team is starting to put some things together late in the season? Oh, and by the way, they're doing this without Jonathan Taylor, who they'll be getting back in at least a couple of weeks.
I would put it this way. I would hate to be the wild card team or the division winner who then has to play them as a wild card team at home, because they have literally nothing to lose. They're not even like the Texans, where it's like, oh, we weren't supposed to be here, but now we're just like an upstart good team. This is a team that it literally has nothing to lose. They're stealing the Jets playbook, right? Of we can make it into the playoffs with a backup quarterback, and then maybe our guy comes back, only they never, had to worry about the Richardson coming back. The other thing, the thing that honestly jumps to the front of my mind when I think about the Colts is this feels very much like the Browns when they went all in with the last year with Brissett, when they were kind of F it, our quarterback's not going to be here till week, what it was at 13. So let's just throw caution to the wind. They play a game where it's just very, very, everything is on the table at all times. And that is dangerous. That's going to lose you some games. They're going to have turnovers, but
sure.
Right now they're playing a game where it's just they have literally nothing to lose. They're not even trying to the Jets, you watch them, it's well, they're trying to protect their great defense and do things to just let their defense win games. No, the Colts don't care. They are literally the embodiment of their quarterback right now, where it's just is this team did this team just do a line of coke right before they walked into a big business meeting? You're in that scenario where you're looking at the guy what did he just do? And then you're this is going to go one of two ways when we walk into the meeting. And it's just wild. Like, you just have no idea what they're doing. And it's fun to watch. Shane Steichen absolutely needs to be in the top 3 for Coach of the Year candidates right now.
Yeah, definitely. If they make the playoffs, I almost feel like he's kind of a shoo-in. He lost
And
his starting quarterback,
yeah.
right away.
And for the Titans, on the opposite end of that, I'll just finish over this. Like, I still feel like good if I'm a Titans fan. Like, things are working out. Like, Levis isn't a disaster. He's not the problem. You can just see there's a talent deficiency, especially along like the offensive line. Like, Derrick Henry gotten going again. It's Derrick Henry season here now that we're in November, and I know he left the game. He had to get injured and
yeah, concussion.
But like, it's that time of the year where he's starting to really come alive. This team, the Titans, are just like 3 or 4 A players away, right? They need like 3 or 4 A guys. We're just like, you add some studs to that team, and then like a bunch more Bs, like a bunch more just like okay quality starters. They're just at a talent that it's not like it's not a panic mode where they're looking around going like, oh, dude, this kid can't play. Like that's just not it. And so for the Colts, was supposed to be a throwaway year, and it's just turned into like the ultimate fun year. Like, just enjoy it if you're a Colts fan, because next year you're going to be living and dying in every single Richardson pass. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? And so just enjoy this while it's fun and you're having a good time and you're flying high with like your coach you have great vibes about, because in a year from now, you could be, 4-8, and Richardson could be on a roller coaster, and you could be saying, is Shane Steichen the guy? I don't know. Like, it can change on a dime. So just enjoy the run right now, Colts fans.
Yeah, I mean, if it's good, there's no reason to complain. Just enjoy it. And on top of that, the Colts are, an interesting team here to kind of play spoiler down the stretch as well.
Yeah.
Because the AFC playoff picture is getting like muddier and muddier as we get down the road here, right? I mean, we had Kansas City lose here this past week. The Steelers did, the Browns did. You have the Texans
lost,
surging, and then the Broncos lose. So, I mean, the picture's really in flux there in the AFC. Tons of moving parts. And so the Colts, now that they've actually put themselves in a 7-seed spot right now, very well are in a position where they kind of control their own destiny, and that's got to be a good feeling. As for the Titans, they'd have to go 5-0 to really sniff a chance, and so that's very unlikely to happen. But you're right. It's about Will Levis and kind of getting him back on the tracks, and maybe Derrick Henry, if he comes back and hopefully the concussion doesn't keep him out too long, he can be a constant guy that Levis can lean on as they get more and more comfortable with the offense. Jeffrey Simmons did suffer an injury in this one as well. A pretty bad week for injuries in a year that's been terrible with notable injuries, and it does seem just like that there's an increase. I wonder if there's a place that actually tracks injuries and then like even does more meta analysis, like injuries to starters and prominent players, because it really does feel like this year is unique in that realm. We're just dealing with a lot of backups at a lot of positions. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I'll just, my final point on this will be for the Titans. Like, it's starting to feel like, you don't have, when Ryan Tannehill was playing and they were playing poorly, it felt like, just blow up the whole team, get rid of everyone. It doesn't feel that way for me right now. Like, it doesn't feel like, you need to trade Derrick Henry in the offseason. You need to do this. Like, no, like, it just feels like you need to keep adding players to this. Like, there is just a dearth of talent. Like, it doesn't feel like it's not saying that it's a retooling, but it doesn't feel like it needs to be blown up. And there was a point in time where it felt like it needed to be blown up.
Yeah, you don't need to tear it down to the studs for sure. So yeah, we'll see kind of what decisions they make. We've seen with the Houston Texans, one good draft. Now, obviously they had 2 top 3 picks, but one good draft can like turn around your fortunes very quickly. And I think we're all confident Mike Vrabel, when given the proper set of tools, can put together quite a competitive team in a, what's becoming a more competitive division, but still a winnable division, no doubt. We'll get to that Chargers-Patriots game and spend 22 seconds on it. The Chargers win 6-0 on the road as New England falls to 2-10. A disgusting game. 6-0 is the final, and the Patriots now the only team to go 3 straight games of giving up 10 or fewer points to an opponent and losing all 3. They're 0-3 in that stretch, amazingly. And clearly just not able to get any offensive production on this New England team. And they get a quick turnaround as they play the Pittsburgh Steelers Thursday night with presumably Bailey Zappi once again as the starter for New England. Just an absolute shambles there for the Patriots, and the Chargers looking pretty bad too. I mean, my question is this a time to completely blow up the operation there in LA minus Justin Herbert essentially?
Yeah, I don't even know what you do with like Kellen Moore. Like he was supposed to be the one to fix it all, and I just don't know at this point. Mainly because I thought he would come in and help develop this offense. And Quentin Williams looks like a bust right now, just drop after drop after drop. And their offensive line feels like it's regressed. Rashawn Slater, I mean, like his rookie year was an all-pro, and now here we are 2 years later. He missed all last season because of the injury. It just nothing feels like Corey Linsley. Like what happened to this vaunted Chargers offensive line? So it does feel overall just like a dearth of coaching. Similar to what I've complained about on my franchise, where it just feels like, where's the development? Where is the growth? You know what I mean? Like this is what you're in charge of doing. Part of coaching is growing your talent and getting your talent from point A to point B. Yeah, that's what the University of Iowa does so well. A lot of guys come out of nowhere. They take a bunch of 3-star guys and make them 4-star guys, or sometimes 5-star guys by the time they leave. And so, like, that is a crucial thing that it feels like the Chargers are lacking desperately. Finally, with the Patriots, I'll just say this, guys. The holidays are tough, right? And you have an obligation at this point in time of the season. We're heading to week 14, where there's been plenty of times where the lady in your life has had to, kind of swallow the tough pill, because it's like, hey, football's on, and I know that's like all he cares about, and all he wants to do is watch football. You have 2 chances this week, tonight and Thursday night. Like, surprise her with the date night. There is no reason to bet these games. There's no reason to watch these games. Surprise her with a date night, fellas. Just like, hey, honey,
it'll go a long way.
And then you just like you're out at dinner. You're drinking a glass of wine. Maybe the game's on the background. She goes, "Oh, there's football night. Didn't you want to watch it?" No, honey. You know what? Like, I just want to spend the night with you. Like, this is it. She doesn't know that it's Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky. She doesn't know that it's Jake Browning about to get destroyed by Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. She doesn't need to know that. Doesn't need to know it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a word to the wise right there. That's the Mark Hespin wisdom hour for you here at the Football Lounge. I love it. Great tidbit there to get us going. By the way, I got that stat wrong. It's not the first time in NFL history. It's the first time since the Chicago Cardinals back in 1938. So sorry to all the Patriots out there. You actually didn't make history. You just made
the Arizona
the past 90 years. Moving on to a little bit more entertaining of a game, although it wasn't the greatest, of the weekend, but 33-28 victory for the Detroit Lions over the New Orleans Saints. I feel like this was it for the Saints, even though they're only one game out for the division. This felt like an opportunity, and it was a very tough matchup. Don't get me wrong, but
Carr
they had
gets injured.
Pretty bad loss last week. You needed to get a win this week to put yourself back in a good position. As we mentioned, 6-6 is a lot different than 5-7 this time of the year. They're 5-7 now. Derek Carr, as you mentioned, gets hurt, which, ironically enough, they may be better off right now. It's just like the offense was not working with Derek Carr. I don't know what it was, but they just weren't utilizing their weapon. And the one thing they have in their weapons is like big play capabilities, right? And they haven't been getting enough of those. So maybe with Jameis Winston or whoever they decide to go with is going to be a little bit of a cure for them. And their best, feature isn't even something to do with them. It's the fact that they compete in the NFC South and, still technically have a chance with the Falcons 1 game ahead in the standings. Meanwhile, the Lions, this wasn't your prettiest performance, especially defensively, but 33-28 victory. You'll take that all day. I mean, they came out to a strong start, 21-0. Let the Saints kind of creep back in going into the second half and even into the fourth quarter. But the Lions at 9-3 with what the 49ers did to the Eagles yesterday. I mean, the Lions are still putting themselves in a position where they can get that 1 seed. They really can compete for that 1 seed still, and the division's pretty much locked up for them. So, my question to you, do you think the Saints are pretty much done with this loss, or Do you think they still have a pretty good fighting chance to win this division? And then secondly, uh, did this like shatter your faith at all in the Detroit Lions, given that it was so close?
Okay, first part of the question is the Saints. The best thing for the Saints is to continue to lose. The Saints should lose out. Like if you are the New Orleans Saints, the best thing that could happen to you as a fan, I know this hurts, lose out, because this team is not the type of team you want to run back next year. At this point in time, Dennis Allen, I think I heard a stat somewhere today. He's like 22-40 something as a head coach now. I mean, ugly record. He's not the guy. Carr's not the guy. Taysom's not the guy. Jameis isn't the guy. If I were the Saints, I mean,
it's worse than that, Mark. I just looked it up. 23-54.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just horrible. Like he's horrible. Wow. And he's the defensive guy, and defensively, again, this Saints defense that has pieces has just not carried them the way they needed to be carried. And offensively, it's like the whole room hates each other. It's like they get on offense, and it's like that married couple that's like, oh, shit, we got to be in the same room again together right now. And like, oh, hi, yeah, you know what I mean? There's company over, and we're smiling. Like the offense just, nothing works. Nothing feels right at all. I will say this. I think the Saints are now becoming that next team for me to start saying, give me your A player and your next 2 first-round picks, and we'll give you the first overall. Like they are now becoming that team that, like, look in the NFC South. You know what I mean? Your rivals, the Panthers, got Bryce Young last year. You don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do. You don't want them to get the guy before you get the guy. And Atlanta's going to be all in for trying to get the guy, right? So, like, the Saints are now my team. Like, give me Alvin Kamara, this year's first, next year's first. You can have number 1 overall. You know what I mean? Give me Chris Olave, this year's first, next year's first. Okay, you can have number 1 overall. Like that is, and the Saints need to do it. Like they need to rip everything down from the studs. They need to go get it, attract an offensive coach, and then say, here, we're going to get you the number 1 overall pick, and let's go build with Caleb Williams and whatever it might be. I really feel like the Saints are now in that mode where the best thing for them going forward is to do that. Can they still win the division? Sure. Why not? But like, it doesn't matter. And I think it's in the long run worse for the Saints. Also, for the Lions, second part of that question, I'm not panicking from the Lions at all. This was a Lions win of the year. Their defense is going to let up big plays. It's a roller coaster. Their defense can pressure the passer. That's one thing they're good at, but everything else is a struggle. They can tackle. I like their linebackers. You know what I mean? Like, and Campbell, Anzalone, you know what I mean? Anzalone, like, and then they can rush the passer. But everything else is a struggle, but it doesn't matter. Like, look at the teams right now that you can say to yourself, I trust them to score 30 points in a big game. The Lions are one of the few teams I can say that about. Even the Chiefs, the Chiefs, I don't even know if I can say I can trust them to score 30 points in a big game. I can trust the Lions to score 30 points if they need to score 30 points to win. That offensive line, that offense, the way they move, I feel like I can trust them to do that as it get late in the season. So no, I'm not panicking about the Lions at all. Their whole season's still in front of them. They play Minnesota 2 of the last 3 games. You win those 2 games, you lock up the division, and you're set. You're hosting a home playoff game for the first time since we were 3.
Yeah. Kansas City's only scored 30 plus 3 times this year, which is
one of those was against the Bears.
Bizarre. Yeah. That's bizarre for this Kansas City offense for sure, but they have not been themselves. And I guess I got to swing backwards because I think you were right. I don't know what I was reading one tweet that had him at 23-54. It's 20-45, but it's really bad either way. So
it's horrible.
It's 20. Yeah. And I see another one that says his 5-7 record after week 13 is the best that he's ever had in a single season as of week 13. So somehow he's reached new levels of like greatness. He's improving.
He's so good. Actually, you know what? I take it back. Don't fire him. You got to build off this.
Hey,
he's getting the building blocks are there.
I think he can go into Mickey Loomis's office there in New Orleans and say, hey,
he definitely hasn't lost the locker room. They all love each other down there. It looks like they all have so much fun together, and their wide receivers don't love committing crimes. It's definitely.
When was the last time we were like, wow? And honestly, like we think of New Orleans as being a team that drafts pretty well, but I can't think in like recent years, like the last 5 or 6 of like being like, wow, they really hit on these draft picks. Like Chris Olave, yeah, of course they
Yeah.
hit on him, and Marshawn Lattimore. Those are like the 2 that come to mind, but I can't really think of like any recent year where like they really nailed the draft. Like we think
I'm
of with the
sure
Lions or
I'm
the
sure there's a New
Seahawks,
Orleans Saints fan out there who would be like, you idiots, you're not mentioning it. But I tend to agree with you. They feel like they've pieced it together. They've been old for a while. And listen, I don't blame them going into this season saying, hey, we committed to Allen. He's getting his second year, and let's go get him his quarterback who he had back in Oakland with their car. Let's bring in a professional. We have a ton of weapons, and let's make a run for this. Everyone predicted them to win this division, not thinking they'd be insanely good, but just thinking, okay, they're going to be better than all the crap around them. And they've just been so ugly to watch. It's a real disaster. And to me, if I was a Saints fan, I'd be rooting and cheering for them to just blow it up.
Yeah, you got to get a fresh start.
You're going to be in cap hell for the next 2 years. You might as well be young and fun and in cap hell and developing young players as opposed to just piecing it together, mediocre around the 13th pick every year.
Well, the team that is in line to win the NFC South now, the Atlanta Falcons, got a win, putting them to 6-6 and putting them ahead of everyone else in the standings there. Very ugly game.
Gross.
Another brutal one, 13-8 over the New York Jets, who ended up starting Tim Boyle and then moving to Trevor Siemian in this game. So we're starting to see a quarterback carousel there in New York.
Former Bears great Trevor Siemian, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So 13-8 win for the Falcons. They're winning ugly, which kind of just seems to be par for the course for Atlanta, and that's how they're going to be able to do it this year. But we kept saying the NFC South winner might not be above 500 with their record, and they are at 500 right now with their record, and so the Falcons in the driver's seat right now in the NFC South. They're running the football, but that's about all you can say. It's just 2 pretty rough teams going at it. It's just that the Falcons aren't nearly as bad as the Jets, especially offensively.
Getting the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs is a bye week. You're going to get to play the Falcons. Like that's, or, sorry.
Fair.
The Falcons are actually probably going to win the division.
Well, so if they win their division.
I meant to say the number 5 seed, the best wild card team. Like for the Cowboys, you want to win your division, right? But like getting that is going to be like a bye week. You're going to get to play the Falcons. So that's what I had to say about them. And as far as far as the Jets go, Diana Rossini, former ESPN great, who's now with The Athletic. This is 1 hour ago. This is how much hell the Jets are in. The Jets want, it's hard to even read it without laughing. The Jets want to make a switch at QB. The team is leaning towards Zach Wilson to take back over the reins of the team. But Zach Wilson is reluctant to step back in. Sources tell Zach Blatt and Diana Rossini. So they're wanting to go back to Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson is saying basically like, no, don't want it.
I'm done with that, dude.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. Like he's pulling a Cartman, like, screw you guys, I'm going home.
There have been.
You blamed it all on me. You called for my backups to play for the last 5 weeks. You had 2 weeks of backups. You're like, hey, can we go back to Zach? And he's going double bird, and he's saying, screw you guys, I'm going home. I don't blame Zach Wilson.
I don't blame it. I mean, few quarterbacks have been tossed around as much as he has on their own team. I mean, I'll think of Mac Jones as being the other one in recent memory. Mac Jones gets benched and then started all the time. But I get it.
We said it when the Aaron Rodgers injury happened. I'd love to go back and like listen to the exact wording, but I know we talked about it. I know we said there were 2 options basically for the Jets. Like number 1 was you ride with Zach Wilson no matter what, and knowing it'd be highs and lows, and he's got a chance to like prove he can play in this league. And we knew that when like that was a long shot for him to become, wow, he's a starter again, or wow, he can be a capable player. But as soon as you bend Zach Wilson again, like that was over. Like you can't go back to him. And this is why we also said the other path was you need to immediately go out and just get someone. Because Zach Wilson was a fine break glass of a case of emergency when you had Aaron Rodgers healthy. But you had a chance after week 1, you know what I mean, when he's injured, to bring in a guy, and by week 3 or 4, he knows the playbook. Look at Josh Dobbs. and then he can be a capable player that your team rallies around. You didn't do it. It's too little too late. And even though I don't think they should fire Saleh, this is the type of stuff to where I like
you question.
It makes you want to just say, like, I want to trade Aaron Rodgers. I want to burn it all down. But again, I think this just goes to prove for Saleh in his defense. If I was Saleh, I'd say, like, this is how bad it is here. How do you expect me to do anything? Look how good my defense is. This is how bad it is here. Our GM, he bowed down to Aaron Rodgers, at the altar of Aaron Rodgers. That's why we're stuck with Tim Boyle. That's why we're stuck with Adams. That's why we're stuck with Al Nazard, who was a healthy no dress 2 weeks ago. We're stuck with these crap players. We're stuck with Aaron Rodgers' contract, and he drafted Zach Wilson. Like, if I'm Saleh, part of me is saying, like, and my defense is one of the best units in football. So he's got a lot to stand on, but he also, like, it's just such a mess. It's so ugly. It's so bad.
It's hard when you're really good at your job, but you're not able to, put down tangible results.
You think Saleh wanted to hire Nathaniel Hackett? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did he really want to hire Nathaniel Hackett?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure, obviously. I mean, maybe he did like, Hackett, but it certainly didn't seem like it was his choice to initiate that and put him into the conversation.
God, it's just ugly. It's bad in New York.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's nothing's going well there, and they have
that tweet.
They have some dynamic playmakers, and it's just,
Zach Wilson is saying, "No, I'm good. Yeah. I'm good." He's doing the Jonah Hill meme from like 22 Jump Street. Where he's like, he's doing that. Watch on the YouTube. He's doing that. Or no, he's like at the Oscars. He's at like an award show wherever he's at, and he's doing this thing. Jonah Hill.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's what. Yeah, you're right. That is what it's from.
He's like in a suit or something. He's like at the. He's
going, He's in the chair. Yeah. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I also thought that was from one of the movies.
Just type in Jonah Hill into your GIF bar.
Yeah, that's a top one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably plenty of Pittsburgh Steelers that were doing that during the Cardinals game. Like, I'm gonna stay out. You don't even have to put me in. It's all good, because they got absolutely destroyed by the Arizona Cardinals. The 2-10 terrible Arizona Cardinals came into Acrisure Stadium and embarrassed the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was almost, you're due for like one of those a year with Pittsburgh, it seems. But this was I feel like I probably in recent years said this more than I ever have in my life, but I not to be hyperbolic, but this probably goes down as among one of the worst losses in Mike Tomlin's tenure, and certainly the worst loss of the season, but definitely one of the worst of Mike Tomlin's career. Despite having Kyler Murray back, obviously 2-10 wasn't indicative of their record if they had Kyler Murray. They were still not a very good team, especially on defense. Okay, their defense sucked. And does suck, to be blunt about it. But the Pittsburgh Steelers managed 10 points, 7 of which came in garbage time. They got stuffed at the goal line. The physical Pittsburgh Steelers got stuffed at the goal line. It was penalties. It was poor play. It was fumbling. It was 2 awful snaps. It was things not bouncing your way. Everything that could go wrong went wrong for the Steelers, and the Cardinals took full advantage. James Conner had 2 touchdowns and 100 yards in his return to Pittsburgh. All around an absolute shit show for Pittsburgh. And I will say this has to put them in the position of like starting to panic, certainly, because you're 7-5. The only solace you can take as a Steelers fan or a member of the team is that you hung on to your 5 seed spot for the time being, because the Browns lost and the Colts won, which put them into the 7 seed instead. But that's it. I mean, you lose 1 or 2 of these other games you're supposed to win, and that's pretty much a wrap for the season, honestly. I mean, they're getting that point where it's pretty close to being a disaster. And now that Kenny Pickett goes down, gets hurt, he's going to be out for an extended period of time. He had to have surgery today on his ankle, so he's at least missing Thursday night, most likely the week after. So yeah, it's time to start the alarm bells, and things need to happen. I'll tell you, the happiest person was probably Matt Canada from this game, saying, "Yeah, wasn't all me, was it?"
Yeah, absolutely. Kenny's one of those weird ankle sprains that requires a surgery. and then like the healing time is only like 2.5 weeks. It's crazy how some of those work.
They're doing it. They like you can choose to heal a high ankle, from what I understand. Over like if this happened in week 2, he probably wouldn't have gotten surgery. They'd say you're
But
out
it
4 weeks.
heals. Yeah, but it heals
But the
quicker.
surgery it's because of how urgent they need him back. They're like, we're gonna do the surgery so you can get back a week or 2 quicker.
Yeah.
That's from my understanding. That's how it works. But.
Yeah, I will say this.
He gets hurt a lot too, Mark. I mean,
Yeah.
we're 2 years in now. The guy's had a couple concussions. He's had banged up knees. He's had.
Listen, you're in a world of hurt either way right now, because the problem with the Steelers is there's so many things from this loss, right? There's so many things. For the Cardinals, all they've done is really once again prove that they're probably not going to be in the quarterback market. Like the Cardinals are we're the first team that's going to take like the best player on the board, whether it's Harrison Jr., offensive lineman, whatever they want. Like they're that team now that's looking like we're adding a bunch of talent, which is it's a good direction. It's good to have clarity in a direction, right? And Kyler played well, but I want to go back to the Steelers because at best, this was just hey, we weren't prepared. We got punched in the mouth. We came in a little cocky and confident, and then an injury slowed us down with a weird delay, and that's why we lost. That's at best like what happened that game. And even in that,
and
you're going to say, wait a minute, your longtime Super Bowl winning head coach couldn't get your team fired up to make sure you could show up with juice and energy to win an easy must-win game for your season at home. And at best, you overlooked an opponent. Like that is Mike Tomlin, as much as we all love him and as much as he is, he would have a job in a second if he was let go. This was one of those losses where it's like, if you're a good team and you come out and you lay an egg, right? Like the Eagles earlier in this year lost to the Jets. That's their one loss before they lost the Niners. It happens. Like things go wrong. A team plays a really good game because it's their kind of Super Bowl and no one's believing in them, right? And you get beat. But the Pittsburgh Steelers they've not looked like the Eagles. They've not looked like the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, they haven't had a moment.
They haven't had the moment where they're like the big dog on campus. This was like, hey, people think we're going to win this game, so we're just going to win it. And then TJ Watt gets nicked up a bit. I mean, it's
Minka Fitzpatrick broke his hand in the game as well. They lost their third middle linebacker this season. They lost. So now they're down to Miles Jack and Blake Martinez, who weren't playing football 2 weeks ago. That's who they're going to end up playing.
Dan, as a Steelers fan right now, well, I'll leave it on this. My final thought on it is just a question for you. Is we talk so much now. We just talked about what the best thing going forward for the Saints. Like we talk so much on the show about what the Bears should do in their future because of the picks and like where are you at where you're like, this is my blueprint for the Steelers' success for the next 2 years? You know what I mean? I'm not even asking 5 years, but like, what's the window? Like, because the ceiling is not Super Bowl. Like they're not a Super Bowl team, even if Kenny's healthy, right? Even next year, they don't feel like they'd be a Super Bowl team. So like, where is the end game here for the Steelers? Like how do you feel this morning is like, this is what this team needs to do?
I mean, my thoughts, especially the last month or so of the season, have been the top priority is Mike Tomlin needs to make considerable assistant hires this upcoming offseason. We had Brian Flores last year, who he hired to coach the linebackers. And that actually did a lot of good for the linebacking core. Like you saw considerable progress there.
And Flores has been pretty good in Minnesota this year as the DC.
Yeah, I mean, he's a talented guy, right? But like, and that was we're like, wow, we're getting a guy who's just a head coach to be our linebackers coach. Like, that's pretty legit. But that's about the only hire that Tomlin's made in his entire career as the head coach that has been like, whoa, like a big name, solid hire. So that's priority number one, is to get a huge blockbuster offensive coordinator hire. Someone that's, I don't even know if that's like a Frank Reich or, if you try and get someone to do a lateral move, those are hard to do. But if you can pull a Ben Johnson from
if you can
Detroit,
spend a ton of money.
You got to spend money.
Eric
I mean, and
Bieniemy
that's what
did
you
it.
have to
Eric
do.
Bieniemy went. You know what I mean? If Bieniemy, so it can happen.
And Bieniemy probably saw like, okay, well, this is an opportunity to maybe get in there after Ron is maybe he thought that Ron Rivera would be fired at some point, so maybe he saw a little bit more of a pathway than there would be in Pittsburgh. But man, you have such an easy sell in Pittsburgh. Like, do you want to come be the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers with a young quarterback? Like, absolutely not. And who wouldn't say yes to that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So he needs to swallow his pride a little bit and go make some big time hires. That's the number one thing.
You're obviously starting Kenny Pickett next year too, right?
The second thing is to have Kenny Pickett for a full year.
Do you bring in real veteran competition next year?
I don't think they need to bring veteran competition next year. I think they are going to not have Mason Rudolph as the third string next year. So what I think they need to do is take a quarterback like the third round or something. Like, take a mid-round quarterback, and that'll be your third string. So then you fill out your roster there. You have a third string quarterback, and you're taking shots on some other quarterbacks here. Get one undrafted
and
as well.
Puts a lot of pressure on
two rookie quarterbacks. Yeah.
And at this point, you kind of need to light the fire. It's now or never.
Yeah. And the problem is their window is the next couple years, because
that defense,
they need it's TJ Watt's prime. Cam Hayward has got maybe 2-3 years left in his career. Minkah Fitzpatrick's in his prime. Like, this is it. Like, if you lose that, then you spend all that money on defense for nothing. Not even a playoff win. So they need to win fast.
They're a fascinating team because it feels as though you're absolutely right. The ceiling for this team is just a first round exit. And yet there's no one's talking about Tomlin on the hot seat nationally. And no one's really talking about Pittsburgh Steelers as like, they need to be aggressive. Like, to me, Pittsburgh feels like a team that needs to be really aggressive, but I think people aren't talking about it because they just know that's not what Pittsburgh does.
Yeah. And obviously the fact that Pittsburgh is consistently decent doesn't help the case when you're trying to make tough decisions. Right?
Yeah. If I were to say,
it really lets the conversation kind of slip by.
If I were to say, like, what would you want the Steelers all of a sudden? What if you heard a rumor, towards the end of the season that, hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to seriously consider trading up in the draft? Would you be like pumped about, we're going to go trade 2 firsts and something to go get the number 1 overall pick? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen enough of Kenny to maybe feel like he's not going to reach like a ceiling of, the best in the league or among the best in the league. I still feel like maybe his ceiling could be somewhat close to a Brock Purdy level, and I feel like that's good enough to get a team to a Super Bowl. That's why I think a new offensive coordinator to get a year with Kenny will really tell us, what we need to know. And then if you move off of Kenny after year 3, or he's benched, then you at least have the coordinator in place. You have the offense in place to bring in a young quarterback and start fresh.
So
you already have the system in place. Right?
Path for the Steelers right now is a new offense of an elite offensive mind and drafting a quarterback in third or fourth round.
Yeah, somewhere late day 2, early day 3.
Someone you can say to yourself is going to put some pressure on Kenny in camp. Maybe have maybe someone different, like a Spencer Rattler, like he's coming out.
Yeah.
And he was like a high name. He's got like a high upside type of guy to where you just like, whoa, he's going to wow people, to where if the season starts going wonky next year and Kenny's not performing by late October next year, you can bench him and see if it's the offense, if it's the quarterback, what is it?
It's all about dart throws, right? We talk about it all the time. You just got to try and find that guy. So there's no issue in my mind of going for a third or fourth round quarterback, and maybe he hits, maybe he doesn't, but who cares? You spent a third, those are high picks, sure. But the way Pittsburgh drafts, they should be confident that, it's not going to be a waste.
Pittsburgh doesn't have a lot of needs. You guys don't have a ton of needs beyond finding that elite.
Center now is probably going to be number 1 for them. I would think center, middle linebacker are pretty high up there. But yeah, they're not devoid of talent at many positions. All right, the Dolphins get a 30-point win on the road at Washington Tyreek Hill now legitimately on pace for over 2,100 yards, which would break the record by over 150 plus yards. So Tyreek Hill firmly putting himself in position for even potentially a league MVP. He is otherworldly. 2 big touchdowns in this game. Devon Achane came back. He had 2 touchdowns in this game as well. So they were looking right back in sync offensively.
Yeah.
The Commanders are, they're the Commanders. They're starting to wither a little bit. I still feel like we're seeing some good play from Sam Howell.
Agreed.
At times throughout the season. So that's got to be, reassuring. But yeah, this maybe puts you on the pathway to, okay, we're going to be gone with Ron Rivera after this season, but there are some, elements to this team that gives us confidence. So with the way the Dolphins have been performing, they are now 9-3 too. I mean, do we need to start talking about them being a 1 seed here in the AFC to represent the AFC?
I mean, we talked about it last week. I feel really good about that. And I will say this, in a week where big teams and like big moments, like had some letdowns, like the Eagles and the Chiefs, the Dolphins did exactly what they needed to do. You know what I mean? Pittsburgh, you have a weaker opponent in front of you. You should beat them. Come out and put on some stats and go dominate. That's exactly what the Dolphins did. So credit to them. And then for the Commanders, I will say the only thing that's interesting is that this was Ron Rivera getting to call the defense, and it did not look good. And they had extra time to prepare from Thursday night, Thanksgiving to now, and so ugly. It just really, really ugly. And so, my 2-win prediction for Washington starting to look a little better. They're obviously above 2 wins, but just as predicting this season would kind of fall apart, starting to feel a little bit better about that. And then overall for Miami, kudos to them for doing what clearly is not an easy thing to do in the league, which is you're the favorite. You're go in there and just beat the doors off them. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, we've talked about it with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, to the one credit we give Dallas is that they won
beat
the
up
games
on the
that
bad
they're
teams.
supposed to win.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is something to be said for that, because it's any given Sunday and it can be easy to overlook opponents or just, have down nights. The healthy Dolphins don't seem to have a down night very often. So that gives you a lot of hope. Meanwhile, that story came out, I think last week or the week before, of the cameraman who was filming Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill grabbed his camera and did the backflip.
I think that's such a stupid story.
The NFL suspended him, which is, that sucks, especially because he was a young guy, seemed to be very enthusiastic and excited to be doing.
I have no care
the rest of the year, but the cool thing is that Tyreek Hill is picking up his salary for the remainder.
Well,
that
is cool, but apparently him and Tyreek Hill were like chums before this. Like he worked on Tyreek Hill's staff.
Yes,
before getting hired with the NFL. And so part of me just wonders, did they plan this? Did they know? It all seemed really fishy to me anyways. And it's just I don't have much empathy for a 21-year-old kid who's, built his
but it is kind of crazy that the NFL suspended him, right? It's like, dude, what?
No, it's not, because the NFL does stupid things all the time. The NFL does crazy,
but it's
stupid.
Still stupid.
It's still stupid, sure, but it's like one of those. I had this story. I was just looked at it. I felt old man from the closet. I'm like, who cares?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are trying to say it's very it's how heartwarming it is. It's like, it's not,
no. This kid was DMing athletes trying to get in on the I'll create social media for stuff for you. He wormed his way to a position, and then it seemed as though the NFL was just kind of screw you, kid. We regret this.
Okay, when you frame it that way, I'm kind of.
I support the NFL in saying to 21-year-old douches on the sidelines who get in their Prada sunglasses saying, "Yeah, fuck off."
The Houston Texans got a much-needed win. They're 7-5 now, Mark, over the Denver Broncos. This game could have gone either way, really, and it was a little bit back and forth, especially with the Broncos making a push late in this game. So Texans now 7-5. They are just on the outside of the playoffs. If you were a betting man, by the end of the season, are the Texans a playoff team?
I have to look at their schedule, but I'm leaning towards yes. I think so. At this point, the AFC South could have 3 teams in. At this, who would ever guess that?
They do lose Tank Dell for the rest of the year.
I know that
brutal.
sucks.
Just
that really does suck,
because he was a great
Nico Collins stepped up big. I'll say this.
Here it is. I'll read it to you real quick.
Yeah.
At Jets, at Titans,
Win.
versus Browns, versus
Win.
Titans,
Win.
at Colts. So they've got 5 games.
They have the Colts.
I mean, 5-0.
That last game against the Colts could be for the final wild card spot. That's really fun. I'll say this.
I mean, they at least go 3-2, right? They're at least 10-7 at this point, I would say.
I'll say this.
That should get you in.
I'd much rather watch the Texans in the playoffs than the Steelers.
Yeah,
I'd much rather watch
the
Texans in the playoffs than the Broncos, than the Browns. I think I'd rather watch the Texans even than the Colts, just because I think the Texans have a legit chance to like make a run upset. I'd like to see the Texans. I mean, I'd like to see the Bills in over a lot of those teams too. But yeah, I mean, they're fun because they have a quarterback and they have a young coach who is he's quickly becoming the next Mike Tomlin. It's crazy. These players would die for him. And he's earned the right for us to consider him as a really, really fantastic young head football coach. The AFC South is getting awesome. I mean, imagine if the Titans can support Levis in the offseason and he takes a step. You'd have 3 real surefire things, and then the wild card would be the most athletic guy who plays the position, like in Anthony Richardson. So
that's what we talked about after the draft coming into this year. We're like, this division is going to quickly be super interesting.
It is. It really, really is. And I'll say that, and then I will mention for the Broncos, because of that 5-game win streak, what they did, no matter what happens with the Broncos the rest of the year, the tempers will have cooled, the waters will have calmed, which that might be the most important thing for the Broncos in general, just to have some calm. No one's talking about us.
Yeah.
Leave us alone.
Quiet offseason.
And they need a quiet, not Sean Payton, just calling out people left and right and going crazy, or Russell Wilson saying stupid things and Mr. Unlimited. Yeah. So I will say that one thing for the Broncos, though, what it's so apparent in that game is they are in cap hell. So they don't have a ton of high-end draft picks because they obviously traded a lot for Russ. They have got to hit on some draft picks. Like their scouting department is at pressure is on, like DEFCON 3. You've got to get a ton in return for your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 5th round guys. Like, because they don't have money in free agency, but they have a real, they need to find just a spark player or two, somewhere, whether it's a young offensive lineman, whether it's a young playmaking, wide receiver, whether it's another corner to go with Surtain, who's just, can help out. They need 2 or 3 more players, but they have no money. So pressure is on for the Denver Broncos. I think Denver missing the playoffs this year, but having this win streak and kind of being relevant is going to do wonders for them going into next year. I still feel like their ceiling will be always low with Russell and this contract. And I think we finally have a grasp on what the Denver Broncos are going forward in this era of Broncos football. Last year and through the first half of the season, we had no idea what we were getting. Are they the worst team in the league? Expectations are really high. Now it's just kind of okay, they're a solid football team with a really low ceiling that still doesn't yet have a true identity. Find the identity, nail on some draft picks. And for the Texans, I just want to watch the Texans play a lot of football. So I hope they make the playoffs.
Definitely. And it sounds like Tank Dell actually could come back for the playoffs, they're saying. So
gotcha.
If that's the case, I mean, you really want them to, make the playoffs and even get to the divisional round where maybe Tank Dell can return. But that's looking like a duo that's going to be dynamic for years and years to come. So, the arrow might be pointing up the most for Houston as opposed to any other team in the league, to be honest.
Absolutely.
The Panthers fall to the Buccaneers on the road in a very close game, one that the Panthers probably were just so sad about because they finally got close to getting a win, getting the bad taste out of their mouth. They're now 1-11 on the season, and the Buccaneers have been reeling. So it's like an opportunity to get a win over a wounded animal in division, but that's not the case. The Buccaneers go to 5-7, and somehow then with that win, the Bucs keep their playoff hopes somewhat alive as everyone is now just chasing the Atlanta Falcons in 6-6. So obviously this is a battle of two bad teams. The Bucs a little bit better. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but this is just something that I have been thinking about. Let's say the Bucs make the playoffs here because let's say they win the division at 9-8 or whatever they end up being. Does this Bucs team? They're not going to have a high draft pick. Is it like, do you run it back with Baker Mayfield? Like, is this a team that you feel could somehow get better in the offseason without drafting a quarterback?
So to me, if I'm the Bucs, I'm in a situation right now where you can kind of play the holding game, right? Your division's not going to run away from you in another year. In a year from now, you'll still be in this division, and what the future of this division will be. It doesn't seem like anyone's going to have a CJ Stroud or, you know what I mean, like a big bad Patrick Mahomes in division within the next year. What I would caution the Bucs about, though, is that I would say you can't wait too long. Like, and you can have the chance to be the most aggressive team in this division, right? You can be the team that says, well, look at what Carolina is never going to win this division, right? We starting to feel like we know that Bryce Young is just not going to be the guy. His ceiling is going to be like Tua, Brock Purdy. So they have a lot of work to do before they get to where, oh my God, we have to really fear Carolina. The Saints are a disaster, and Atlanta feels like they are the guy away. So to me, the question would be, if I'm Tampa, do I feel like there's a path for us to be the most aggressive in rebuilding, new coach, new quarterback, offensive scheme, go for it? Or do you say to yourself, where the chips fall, as long as Atlanta doesn't get Caleb Williams, we're comfortable waiting another year and kind of playing this out and seeing where the chips may fall? Because Baker hasn't been the problem with Tampa this year. They're just a little bit too old. They're a little bit calorie stuck right now. So they're a fascinating team. Like, to me, again, I would suggest be the aggressive one. Reset your clock. Get it. Go get an offensive coach. Any team right now that can any GM that can pull off the trade with the Bears to say, we're going to go get the number 1 overall pick. And like, they're going to attract a head coach. Like, they're going to attract a quality. All the candidates are going to want to apply. Caleb Williams is that kind of guy that in the end, coaches will look at that tape and go, oh yeah, I want to hitch my wagon to that. So any team.
But can they pull off that trade early enough?
Well, that's just the thing. Carolina, the Bears have showed you we're willing to make moves early, right? They made it the second earliest that someone had ever traded the number 1 pick last year. So if what you would have to do if you're a team like the Bucs is you'd have to be aggressive in firing and resetting the staff, right? So we're going to talk a ton about that. I just want to take an opportunity here before we get too deep in the weeds. Say, Carolina, I thought this was the one chance they had to win another game. I think they're going to be a 1-win team here going on out. The first ever 1-16 team. And then finally, kudos to Mike Evans. 10 straight 1,000-yard season start your career. Only Jerry Rice has had more at 14.
Incredible.
He doesn't look like he's even really slowing down that much. I think Mike Evans is a guy that if you're Tampa Bay, you keep, and you just say, we're gonna keep building around Mike Evans in the sense that we have a weapon. No matter who we bring in or what we do, we have this guy who's just been an absolute Iron Man and one of the most underrated wide receivers of his generation, and is quietly putting together an absolute Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Especially because he's got the Super Bowl ring, and because he was so integral. He was Brady's go-to guy during Brady's run. Like he is going to get that as a bump when that comes around.
No question. Absolutely. The Rams beat the hapless Browns led by Joe Flacco, who actually looked all right.
Dude, there's a lot of teams that feel like they could use Joe Flacco right now.
It's definitely. But no, he was able to get a touchdown early, and he was like, okay, Joe, all right. Hey, welcome back to the NFL. But that was about
Rams are the 7th seed. Don't look now, my Rams.
The Rams are making a push for sure. Unfortunately, Puka Nacua did suffer a pretty bad rib injury, it seems. I don't know what the latest is on his outlook here coming forward. That would obviously be brutal. Cooper Kupp has not had the year that maybe a lot of us expected coming in just for how dominant he had been in this offense. Puka was a big reason for that, the emergence of him in that receiver core. But nonetheless, Matt Stafford and company get it done. And they did a pretty good job offensively in this one, considering they're playing one of the tougher defenses. The Browns defense in recent weeks has really slumped.
Yeah.
And now there's more question marks about this defense moving forward. 36 points for the Rams over the Browns, 36-19 the final there. So, yeah, I think this said more about the Rams than it did the Browns, because we kind of felt that the Browns were, playing with house money once Deshaun Watson went down, and it was just, can you ride your defense maybe to somehow get to the 7th seed? That's seeming a little bit more
feel dead. They
like
feel
a pipe
dead.
dream. Yeah. But the Rams are, in a position where they can potentially push for that. The NFC is competitive right now, so that's not going to be easy, but the Rams can definitely do it. They're 6-6 right now and really starting to hit their stride.
The Rams, again, 10 wins basically guarantees you a playoff spot in the NFC. 9 is borderline. 10 gets you in. The Rams, can they win 4 of their last 5 at the Ravens? Tough. That's tough, but then they're home against Commanders, home against the Saints. Those look like feel like wins now.
And the Giants game.
Home on the road against the Giants, that feels like a win. And so can you win either the Rams at the Ravens or the Rams at the Niners? Who knows? Niners that final week could be resting people. We don't know how it'll shake out. So even at 9 wins and 9-8, it feels like they could have a strength of schedule to where they are the 7th seed in the NFC. And again, we said it from the beginning of the year. If I'm a Rams fan, that's a victory. Like, you had the Super Bowl, then you had the massive Super Bowl hangover because of just decimation of injuries and an older roster that fell apart. And you went out and drafted 14 players. You had the most draft picks of any team. And these young guys are starting to come along, good coaching. And now the vibes feel like they're pointing in the right direction to where the Rams could once again, especially if they sneak in. Are you not going to tell me the Rams won't be aggressive in free agency then next year, this offseason, with a bunch more draft capital? They have draft capital again. Like, the Rams could make one more push going into next year with Matt Stafford. Is this kind of being the bridge year to keep the vibes headed in the right direction, where it's like, come join us one more time. Let's make one more run with Matt before we have to then really blow it all up and figure out what the future of this organization is. So positive vibes to the Rams. And the Browns they feel dead.
They do. I think that they are on the verge of just completely potentially collapsing here. But maybe Joe Flacco will somehow steady the ship for them.
Yeah.
And keep them in games with the defense they have. That's clearly why they brought him in. Otherwise, they would just want to see what they had in DTR. But no, they really believe that they can still get there. The 49ers physically destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles in the trenches on both sides of the football, which coming into this game, we were talking about how, there was a pretty even matchup across the board. Well, the 49ers kind of won every matchup that they could in this game, 42-19, the final. And, a big part of the physicality in this was the lack of tackling by the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, there was quite a few opportunities here to get Deebo Samuel down or to, tackle Kittle or McCaffrey. And they just, too many forced missed tackles by the 49ers led to either touchdowns or big plays. And before you know it, it's 42-19. And the 49ers are saying, like, don't forget about us in the NFC race. So are you considering them to get to the favorites, or are you still riding, Eagles country right now?
Breaking news 28 minutes ago from Adam Schefter. Shaquille Leonard, all-pro, former Colts linebacker, signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles, after yesterday's blowout, loss, they want aggressive for Shaquille and basically said, like, what do you need? Let's do this. Let's get it done. It fills a huge position of need for them where the Eagles have been struggling this offseason. I think what yesterday's loss said for me, for the Eagles, the Niners absolutely right now are the number 1 team in football. Like, they are now. They moved to the top of the power rankings, right? They're at the top of the Super Bowl plane. They're there. And they've earned that right, because post the injuries and getting all back together now, they have been a well-oiled machine blowing people out. They went on the road, to me, against the best team in football as of, 24 hours ago and absolutely put on a clinic. Does that mean they're going to beat the Eagles in the playoffs? Does that mean they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, absolutely not. A lot happens between now and then. But I will say, as of right now, I mean, they are number one. They are the leaders in the clubhouse. They are so bleeping talented and efficient.
They are.
And they are just physical beyond belief. I picked Philly to win that game. My belief was you would see Philly step up to the moment and the playmakers would make big plays. And you saw it early in those first 2 drives. Bunch of slant routes, big plays moving, and just couldn't convert. The Niners played like the more desperate team. The Eagles in the end looked like a team that had to look in the mirror and go, we just went through a gauntlet of big games after big games and big wins, and we ran out of juice at the exact wrong time. Because we just got punched in the mouth. Now, in the long run, I do think it's kind of a good thing for Philly. To add Shaq Leonard, they also realize now you can be beat at home by this team. They're going to play better the next time they play them. It's really hard if you're the Niners to beat a good team twice the next time they play. I'm fully predicting. So I think in the long run, it could be a really good thing for Philly. I think this is a disaster for the Cowboys because I think the Philly's going to come out so pissed off and motivated next week to just to go after and use that frustration of the Cowboys. I think also what we learned is that, man, these teams are very different from the last time they played. The Eagles lost 2 great coordinators. Shane Steichen, look what he's doing in Indianapolis. And that offense at times just looks a little disjointed for the Eagles. Look at what Gannon just did to your team. Pew, 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 shots in Arizona. Like, he can coach a defense. And the team, the Eagles, to me, look a little sloppy. And they look like they're a little unbuttoned. And like, oh, we have talent. It'll figure it out. And so hopefully this is a kind of exact gut punch they needed. For the Niners, there's not much else to say except for right now, they are the best team in football, playing the best football. And you do not want to be playing the 49ers right now.
And if you just look at it roster-wise, they have the best roster, I'd say, too. I mean, it's equal parts dominant defense, equal parts dominant offense. It's so hard to compete with. That's what the Eagles were last year, pretty much.
And you can't Purdy. The weakness is still Purdy, in my opinion. And I know he's playing really, really well, but you've got to find a way to make that kid uncomfortable. You've got to hit him. And the Niners, to their credit, they don't let you because they have a great offensive line,
quick,
and they get the ball so quick. So it's that if you're a defensive coordinator, it's figuring out how can we get after him, which is why I still feel like the Eagles and the Lions, they have a chance in the NFC to get him because they do have pass rushes, but it's got to come from one of your front 4 having an all-time game. And that's going, and they're going to have to do it against the best left tackle in football, in Trent Williams. So good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. And linebacker play, which maybe Shaq Leonard will help because, their big thing is doing everything before the line of scrimmage, getting it to Debo and getting Yak. You need a linebacker that can
sideline to sideline and get in. Yeah. Tackles for loss.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to be the formula, but that's easier said than done. The Niners, it's almost hard to remember that they were on an 0-3 skid at one point in the year. And they have, bounced back. Now 9-3, pushing for that 1 seed.
Guess who
got more breaking news?
Wait. Guess who picked up? Schefter has the photo. Guess who picked up Shaq Leonard from the airport today?
Oh, Howie Roseman.
Big Dom. He's making headlines. Big Dom. That's why Big Dom is Big Dom.
That's right. That's right. I saw the video. Because I only saw the 49ers player Greenlaw, shoving Dom's face. Dom, we're referring to the head of security for the Eagles. He and a 49ers player both got ejected because they said that, they both were antagonizing each other and shoving each other. From what I saw, it looked like Dom was just breaking up.
Yeah, but
players,
again,
right?
Those type of people, like in that credential level,
they're not allowed to be.
They're not allowed to make contact with a player from another team. That's what I was hearing, and so the refs immediately knew that. Like, they know who Big Dom is. He's kind of a Philly, like, local celebrity legend.
Yeah,
like, leave it to Philly for them to be like, everyone knows. No one knows who the head of security is for
any of the other teams.
But Big Dom, of course, Big Dom, right? But like that is like, so I think that's part of it was just like, dude, you have one job here. It's like your security, your sideline. There's no reason for you. You could grab one of your guys, but for you to like get into Greenlaw's face to where it's like you're putting hands on an opposing player, and then so he puts his hand in. And I don't think Greenlaw didn't like shove it. He really was like
No,
point in
it's
his
like
face.
index finger like touched the guy's nose.
It was one of those moments, though. I think the refs did the right decision. It was just like, hey, you're both out of here. Now, this is a disadvantage to the Niners because he's an actual player, but it's setting that tempo. Like this game was so fiery from the start.
But the Eagles were less secure after that. So
that's true.
I mean,
very true. Very true. The terrorists didn't capitalize on it. I didn't see it coming. You got to be secure in that. But again, it's that precedent of like, I like the move just because it's like, don't let this game become a fist fight. Because before the game, it was chippy. During the game, it was chippy moments. And so just like quell it, toss them, move on.
For Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes visited Lambeau Field for the first time. I'm trying to, figure out how that's possible. But yeah, I mean, they only play those divisions every 4 years, so that's how it works. But Patrick Mahomes making his debut in Lambeau Field, and the Los Angeles Packers, the Green Bay Rams. I honestly think they're two very similar teams right now. But yeah, the Green Bay Packers get a 27-19.
It's not
victory.
how it's supposed to happen.
It's not. But look, it sucks for the Bears. It sucks for Bears fans everywhere. It sucks for a lot of football fans too, because I think the Packers are close to being universally hated. Jordan Love's playing some good football.
He's playing really good football,
and they've done it against pretty good teams. I mean,
He's playing solid football.
The Packers have beat the Chargers, the Lions, and the Chiefs in 3 straight weeks, all behind Jordan Love performances. I don't know, man. And that's why I did the Rams thing, because they do feel like they're on similar trajectories right now where it's all coming together for both teams, and they're both 6-6 making a push.
I still feel confident that Jordan Love is not Aaron Rodgers and he's not Brett Favre.
Yes.
But I'm feeling more and more confident, but I'm also feeling more and more confident of what I've been saying all season. Who's Jordan Love? I've been saying it all season.
You're asking me who's Jordan Love?
Who I've been saying Jordan Love all season. Who is he? He reminds me of who? He's
I
check the tape. Young Dak Prescott. Like he is Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Like he's really mobile. It seems like the team really likes him. Like they bought into him as their leader. They bought into it. He's got a ton of young weapons. The Packers have surrounded him with a really, really fun young arsenal of weapons. If Watson can ever stay healthy, Christian Watson can never stay healthy.
Yeah, he got hurt again. Yeah,
but they have weapons everywhere. Romeo Dobbs and a couple other those young receivers. I can't think of their names. They didn't even have their number one tight end.
Reed.
Yeah, who's Reed, and they didn't even have their tight end, who is the top pick either. So here's the thing: is he reminds me a lot of Dak Prescott. What does that mean? That means hell for me, because what does Dak Prescott do? He's either winning his division or second place of his division every single year, and he's playing good enough football to still beat up on the bad teams in his division, the Giants and the Commanders. That means the Bears and the Lions are screwed. Like, that's what that means. We're dead. We're screwed.
Or the Vikings, maybe.
Or the Vikings. Maybe the Lions are the new Lion. The Lions can really keep maintaining this and keep growing. And Godspeed, Lions. I'm rooting for you. But, yeah, I mean, we're dead. And so I'm overreacting a little bit. But I will say this was supposed to be the quell the talk game. This was supposed to be the Chiefs' really good defense show up to Lambeau and put a hurt on Jordan Love. This was supposed to be Patrick Mahomes' show. Hey, kid, you've been playing good football, but I'm Patrick Mahomes and you're not. And Jordan Love played better than Patrick Mahomes for 4 quarters. And Jordan Love and his team looked like they had a much better game plan than Andy Reid and his team. And so we said it last week. If the Packers could find a way to beat the Chiefs, they're all the way back. The Packers, I don't think they'll win the division. I think the Lions will lock up the division because the Lions' schedule's easy and the Lions are a good football team. But they absolutely now are a threat for that 5 or 6 seed in the NFC. And they have a really solid offensive line, a really solid defensive line, and weapons, and a quarterback who's starting to believe in himself. That's not a thing you want to see if you are that 2 seed, that 3 seed Lions, or that 4 seed. And so you're going to lose a home playoff game. You absolutely could lose a home playoff game. That's the momentum they're starting to build in Green Bay. Long way to go. Things could still turn around, but that's the momentum. Like, that's legitimate for us to be saying that. We're not overreacting to be talking about Green Bay that way. And for Kansas City, Dan, I will say this. Yes, you just won the Super Bowl. Yes, you've won 2 in 4 years. Yes, you're not going anywhere. Like, you're going to be, like, you're a dynasty, right? But man, oh man, when you don't win the Super Bowl this year, you're really going to kick yourself in the teeth for saying to ourselves, how did we waste the best defense of Mahomes' career? You're never going to have a defense play that well again, just because we were cocky enough to think after 1 year, we won the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill, that we could do it again. Like, the teams have game planned for Kansas City now in the right way. Kansas City is the worst passing offense in yards, like 30 plus down the field. They make no deep throw bombs. And you have Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, and you're making no deep throw bombs. That is a massive problem for the Kansas City Chiefs. A massive problem.
Yeah, they've limited the way they can win games now. They have to either dink and dunk or run behind Pacheco, who
Pacheco's
got ejected from the game, and he is great. But that's good for December, January football. But sometimes you're going to need to get that one big play, and they can't seem to rely on anybody to give them that. Like, you see all of the plays that go to Tony, Sky Moore,
you can't
Rashee Rice are all screens, and Rice, all like shallow crossers.
Rice is coming into his own, and he reminds me a little bit of like Brandon Ayuk, like physical, tough,
and
a little unpolished. Like, once you polish that, that stone, he's going to really, really shine and look good. Like, I think in 2 years from now, Rice will be Ayuk, but he's still not like the guy who takes the top off the defense, like easy touchdown.
Yeah, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling can't haul in any of the deep shots. When
I'm telling you, they've got to find a Zay Flowers, and they got to find a Zay Flowers like tomorrow. And I feel this way about the Chiefs right now. They obviously could still win the Super Bowl, but if they lose this year and they don't win the Super Bowl this year, this is when they're really going to kick themselves in the teeth. In 10, 15 years from now, when you look back on this dynasty, this will look like a wasted year. Allen's dead, Burrow's out, Watson's out. The Broncos have stunk. Your own division, poor Justin Herbert is dealing with absolute poop all around him. Your biggest threat is Lamar Jackson. You have the best defense of your career, and you cannot complete a pass in the air over 30 yards.
Yep, and might not be able to get the 1 seed. It's looking that way right now. That they're not.
Yeah, they're not getting the 1 seed.
Yeah. So let me just pose one question to you as we roll out here. Packers, Rams, Seahawks. Who gets in if we're fighting for the 7 seed here, in your mind, without knowing all of their schedules right now? Because I don't have them all pulled up.
I think those are your 3 teams. Like, I really feel like those.
Well, they got currently the Cowboys are 5, so like their Cowboys are at least
Cowboys
at this point.
So
right?
I would say
the Vikings are the 6th seed right now.
The Vikings are going to fall. Vikings are dead. I think Seattle's the odd man out. I think you're looking at Cowboys. I think you're looking at Packers at that 6th seed, and then Rams. We just talked about the Rams schedule. I think the Rams will get to 9-7 and have tiebreakers enough over Minnesota and Seattle, or Seattle and Minnesota are going to struggle. Like, Seattle's not winning against the Niners this week. I mean, maybe they will, but I think maybe they cover, but they're not. I don't know if they're winning. That's a tough game. Like, their season's on the line. Seattle's season is on the line this week. So maybe Seattle can shock the world. But to me, that feels like today, without knowing if it's even possible because the schedules, it just gut feeling.
Yeah.
I'm going Dallas 5, Green Bay 6, and then Rams 7.
Jacksonville hosts Cincinnati. They're favored by 10. Do they cover?
Take your girls on a date. Don't bother. Don't even go to, you know what? Find a nice restaurant, but a restaurant that would also have the game on, so you could be like, oh, honey, I didn't know there was a game on. Didn't you want to watch it? No, I really wanted to spend the time with you. They cover easily.
Cover 10. All right. Very good. I actually am in agreement with that. I think it's going to be a total scoring fest for Jacksonville, and Cincinnati will be lucky to get couple touchdowns on the board. All right, that'll do it for our Week 13 recap. We may be seeing you once again this Friday talking about potentially a Thursday night football game if we can even call it that.
The ugliest game in NFL history.
Yeah. The over-under for Patriots-Steelers should be about 11.5.
I'm going to bet every Mitch Trubisky. I'm going to bet every Mitch Trubisky prop and not watch a second and just hope that I cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for that. Let's go. Let's see some great Mitch Trubisky 5-yard scrambles. I'm all about it.
Love it.
All right, but we appreciate you all watching. Again, like, subscribe. That really helps us out on YouTube and anywhere that you get this podcast. And be sure to like us over on our social media feeds, Threads, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Until Friday or some other time, he's Mark, I'm Dan, and this has been the Football Lounge.